Good morning and welcome to the weekly reminder. My name is Lauren and I'm here to share a topic with you today. Back to school, coping with anxiety. Last week we talked about some tips for parents with back to school, all of the anxiety and uncertainty that's going on with the upcoming school year. Well, today we're going to talk about a little bit about coping with anxiety. All right. A national toll of NBC found world spread anxiety as students prepare for an uncertain return to classes and or virtual learning. 66% of parents are anxious about sending their children to classrooms again this fall. 43% of parents feel like recent at-home education their children have received during the crisis has prepared them for the next grade. 38% of parents indicated high financial concerns regarding upcoming school year as the unemployment rates in the U.S. climbs to 11.1% with millions out of work. 62% of parents of college students are also anxious about sending their teens off to school. And most of our teachers, their biggest fears are not providing one-on-one instructions to students that need it, becoming ill, technology issues during instruction, and whether they will have time off needed during the quarantine or to quarantine. Anxiety causes people to feel excessively frightened, distressed, or uneasy during situations in which most people would not feel that way. Anxiety is based in fear of the future, whereas depression, on the other hand, is related to the past. Anxiety can show up in so many ways, whether it's feeling worried all the time, having difficulty sleeping, feeling irritable, needing frequent reassurance from people, and maybe feeling on edge. When we feel anxious or stressed, our body releases hormones such as adrenaline, which increases our heart rate, headaches, chest pains, loss of appetite. It's almost like the feeling of being anxious about being anxious. Right? To conquer anxiety, we need to be intentional about staying in the present. The stress surrounding back to school this year can feel unbearable, but knowing that it's normal to feel this way and that you're not alone is a good way to begin to manage your anxiety. As I see it, school stress for parents boil down to 2 points: deciding what to do, and then what to do with those uncomfortable feelings that could arise after that decision. I'm here to help in providing tips of how to deal with the uncertainty and difficult feelings that accompany that process. So come on board, right? 1, acknowledge the stress. The first step towards dealing with anxiety you're experiencing is to notice it, right? We can't heal what we don't acknowledge. When you acknowledge your stress, you're able to make sense of those emotions. You're able to gain an understanding so that you know how to manage them, right? This is also helpful for you to be able to communicate how you're feeling to other people so that you can also feel good about yourself. I would encourage parents and teachers to share their feelings with their partners or family members or friends. It's a great way to have a sounding board and also just some support as well as perspective. 2, accept uncertainty. Part of healthy emotional coping is to accept that you will feel conflicted about decisions that are in front of you. The truth is that no one can make guarantees or promises. It's helpful to remember that in times of chaos, the desperate search for certainty can itself lead to distress. The goal is to make a realistic plan that will holistically keep you, your family, teachers, and children as safe as possible. All right, 3, distinguish between productive and unproductive worries, right? When those unproductive worries or overwhelming feelings arise, do you let them drag on? Do you seek assurance? Do you hurry up and go to the internet and Google everything in sight because you're anxious and want to find that assurance some way or another? Spending time considering how you will navigate the logistics of blending learning is productive if you're engaging in problem solving and making concrete decisions. Especially in times of uncertainty, it's enticing to believe that if you worry about something long enough, you can affect the outcome. But that's a misconception, right? To be a parent during the pandemic is to be worried and uncomfortable. But the good news is that it's not the worry itself that's the problem. It's what you do with those thoughts that causes more suffering. The goal is to avoid being hooked by any one thought or feeling, but instead viewing yourself as an observer of your mind. We have to be able to identify those thoughts as that, just thoughts that we don't have to feed and dwell on, right? All right, cultivate compassion. Okay, I've probably drilled this into you guys over the last couple of episodes. Cultivate compassion. Instead of spending time chasing certainty and second guessing your decisions, work on being self-compassionate. Nurture a sense of goodwill towards yourself for facing hard decisions. Monitoring your self-talk is a key component of self-compassion. Are you holding yourself to an impossible standard by trying to predict the future? Are you blaming yourself for a situation that is completely out of your control? Let go of self-judgment and try developing positive self-talk, such as I'm making the best decision for my family with the information that I have, or this decision works for us and our level of risk tolerance. All right, pay attention to grief. Now, grief is often related to death or loss of a loved one. However, it's also related to change, loss of missed experiences, the loss of sense of community and connection, especially with students going to school, missing out on that connection by doing virtual learning, or even the loss or change of relationships during the course of this pandemic. For parents, their grief and guilt around a lost school year has morphed into obsessive researching or catastrophizing. It can be less confronting to rage over the prospect of more homeschooling than to let yourself feel the sadness of your child not getting to have a full kindergarten or school experience. Grief can masquerade as anxiety. And once you let yourself feel that sadness, remember, acknowledging, you will feel a sense of relief. All right, one of my favorite is practice flexible thinking. Psychological flexibility refers to one's ability to recognize and respond to changing demands in real time. One way to nurture flexibility in thinking is to reflect on other situations in your life when you've been faced with uncertainty and unexpected change. What help did you get during those times? What did you learn about yourself? Think about when you first embarked on the journey of parenthood and the learning processes you endured and overcame. Build a support network. Once you've identified your anxiety, look to your support system to help reduce or at least manage it. This might include reaching out to other parents for help or support, joining a Facebook group, connecting with those who are in the same boat as you to help you alleviate some of your stress, as well as online support groups. If you anticipate having to do some teaching from home, tag team supplemental learning with your support systems. Find a friend who's good at math, or use a person who's always correcting grammar to help with language skills. Don't be afraid to reach out and join forces with other families to help not only yourself, but your friends and others in your community that we're all experiencing this issue together. Now look, when it comes to parenting, every risk feels big. This pandemic has only intensified what parents everywhere have long known. Parenting is an exercise in surrendering, right? Developing these coping skills will not only help guide you during these uncertain times, they'll also serve you well in the future. Now remember, uncertainty is almost always present during major transitions and periods of growth. Remind yourself of what you know to be true and those things that are in your control. Be patient, curious, and compassionate. Breathe. All right. So I want to introduce a mindfulness activity. I will be talking about mindfulness next week, just to give you a heads up. But I want you to practice this mindfulness activity. I think it's a great activity, and I want to know what your experiences are. So make sure when you do this activity that you comment below. All right. So mindfulness is often about being in the present. It's shown to help depression and impulsivity as well as anxiety. All right. So busy trying to juggle being a parent, working from home, and now homeschooling. And you say, Lauren, there's no time for self-care. All right. But I want you to pick an activity that is usually a part of your daily routine, such as washing the dishes, doing the laundry, cleaning around the house, or even taking a shower, etc. Whichever the task, totally focus your attention on what you're doing. Using your senses, notice your body movements, your taste, your touch, your smell, what you see, what you hear. Notice what's happening with your attitude of openness and curiosity. When thoughts arise, acknowledge them and let them go. Do it again and again. Well, you'll find yourself getting caught up in thought, but let them go. As soon as you realize this is happening, gently acknowledge them and bring your attention back to your activity that you're doing. All right? I actually did this yesterday and I was amazed on how in tune I was to the activity and just to myself. So please make sure you try this activity. I look forward to seeing your responses down below about your experience and any mindfulness activities that you find helpful. So join me next week where we talk about mindfulness, what it is, and then how we can incorporate it during this busy time of year with school starting, as well as just coping with the uncertainty around us and just our transition. So please visit our website at remindsupport.org for more information about our online support groups. Our support groups are a great source of resource just to be able to talk and relate to people who are going through some of the same things, building that support network. All right. I want you guys to have a great week. I will see you next week. Take care.